Welcome once again. We are, as always, with Greg Engert, Beer Director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, which includes such places as Church Key, where we are, the Evening Star Cafe, Columbia Firehouse. What is on tap this week?
So, on tap this week is a brand new spring seasonal from the Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. It's called Ruthless Rye IPA. And it's, unsurprisingly, an amazing, beautifully hoppy beer from Sierra Nevada. But what was kind of surprising, for me at least, is the lack of fanfare with which it was released. I mean, Sierra typically, like many craft brewers, really gets out there and, makes a big hubbub about any new beer that they have. But this one just kind of started showing up, and I think it speaks to the quality that Sierra Nevada as a brewery guarantees. I mean, if I were somebody just walked into a store and saw this, I would buy it and trust it, and it would be great to do.
I saw it just the other day for the first time at a liquor store and said, that's going on the list.
Absolutely.
Here it is.
And really a really cool beer. So last year, they had a different spring seasonal. It was called Glissade, and it was a kind of malty, stronger lager. And so for this year, they decided to switch things up a little bit, kind of go back to their roots by featuring the Pacific Northwest hops that have made Sierra Nevada famous all over the country, and really do that great. So Sierra Nevada is one of the only breweries in the United States to use whole cone hops in every single one of their beers. So hops typically are they're kind of milled and pelletized,
right.
But these guys use whole cone hops, and that's what kind of, in some ways, guarantees this rich, aromatic, full, rounded bitterness that we find in these beers.
Do they then, is there a process where the hops stay in a container longer, because they're not all ground up? And
right. I mean, that's one of the problems with whole cones, is that it's a storage issue, it's a freshness issue. But Sierra Nevada does a great job of maintaining and keeping their hops uber fresh, really great condition, and ready to go.
Greg was mentioning, as the seasons change here at Church Key, we get different sort of weather coming in the window. A little on the bright side. Smells great.
Amazing. And it's really beautiful. I mean, if you look at the color, even it doesn't seem dark. It's like a kind of a tawny amber color. Nothing that would indicate a real big, bold malt character, but then we do have a rich maltiness to it, and that's because they're utilizing rye in this beer. That's the Ruthless Rye thing. Typically, IPAs, pale ales are 100% barley malt. Rye, while kind of difficult to brew with, brings in a beautiful kind of spicy, peppery, malty richness that really keeps the hops in balance in this one. I really like the way, not only that it kind of goes bittersweet in the finish, but that the spicy notes of the rye malt are kind of echoed in the spicy, bright notes of the hops themselves.
This may be a stupid question, and I'm not afraid to ask it. Rye, same rye that whiskey makers or distillers use.
Absolutely, 100%, yeah. And, the thing that's interesting about the use of rye is that it is difficult. It doesn't give us as many fermentable sugars as barley does. So when you use rye, you really want that character of the rye, that spice, that richness on the palate to work, and I think it does really beautifully here.
I've tried a couple beers that I think, and I don't know for sure, but to my taste buds, it seemed like they just slapped the rye name on there, and I drank it and said, where is the rye taste? Right. You get the rye taste in this.
Absolutely. So. And that's the thing about it, is that while it's a definite flavor, it doesn't scream out at you. I mean, you can't overwhelm it with other things. So it's a simple, beautifully simple beer. It's got this rye spice, it's got the maltiness of the barley, and then it's got those Pacific Northwest hops. And the other thing about Sierra Nevada that needs to be mentioned is that they're readily available. Their beers are really fresh all the time, and they're really affordable. We're seeing beer prices for great craft beers sneaking up a little bit, and this is one of the breweries that we can count on for great bang for your buck, I think.
Their pale ale is their flagship, is that correct?
Yeah.
And that's always been a go-to at the stores, I think, for people. Does a brewer find it to be a challenge when they have a beer like that that's so well known and so popular? Is it a challenge to get their fans to try the new offerings?
Well, I think it probably was the initial. Now, I think what you're finding more and more is the difficulty for brewers is how do we maintain our flagship beer that we've been doing so well with for so long, but also satisfy the urge of the beer geeks out there who want something new and something, you want to taste new things all the time. And it's definitely a challenge that a lot of bigger craft brewers go through over time. And I think now what the interesting thing is, it's not about trying to get people who are drinking pale to try new things. It's reminding everyone that even though you're trying, Ruthless Rye or the harvest ales they make, or Torpedo or Keller Weiss, or any of the beers they were brewing under the Ovila series, which is they did with some monks in Northern California, to remember that pale ale is still a damn good beer, and one whose recipe and handling and the way it's been made has not changed over the years at all. If anything, I think our palates have.
And a lot of great beer coming out of California. We had a California beer last week.
Yeah.
What are they doing out there?
They're doing the right thing. I think California and Colorado are two states that you really can associate with not just craft beer, but the beginnings of craft beer. Obviously, Washington State, Oregon make insane, great craft beers, and really all over the country now we have great craft beers. But the original craft brewers were popping up California, Colorado, and part of it for California certainly is the proximity to those great hops up in the Pacific Northwest. The other thing it actually had to do with was distribution. I mean, a lot of these brewers didn't have to worry about convincing somebody to sell their beer because they actually were able in those states to both brew and distribute themselves. So that's kind of the reason, one of the reasons why it started there. And then, once the trend starts, everybody loves it. There's lots of thirsty mouths out there, so breweries just keep popping up, just trying to satisfy demand.
What is good to pair this with?
This one is, I think it's become cliche in some ways among food and beer circles to pair rye with things that are great with rye, But to your point before, the reason why I don't think that always works is like you've said. I mean, we've had beers that say rye this, rye that, and it's not really palpable anywhere. But in this case, that beautiful bready, spicy rye character here. I mean, it almost has like a caraway seed effect. I think it lends itself to Reuben's. Pastrami's on rye.
Sauerkraut with
corned beef, sauerkraut, again, sweetness, a little bit of spiciness there. You've got rich meats to deal with the bitterness that we have. You've got that bready sweetness to go along with the flavors of your bread as well. So really, I mean, I just think of like if there's any delis out there that aren't carrying this beer yet, you should be, because this is a no-brainer with deli food in general.
All right, Greg Engert, thank you as always. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And I'm Brennan Haselton. Be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.